this meeting to order. There's really, our last meeting, which was on November 29th, was more of an advisory meeting on the jail update by Jason Boyd to give us an idea of the new jail, blocking, I think was the term that he used for that. And so there's really nothing to approve of the minutes because it was not a board meeting, it was more of an advisory meeting to advise the corrections board how the jail progress is going. So there was no votes, there's nothing to approve, but I wanted to provide the minutes from our last meeting on November 29th. I will kind of skip the next topic, the corrections comprehensive plan, and move right into the grant because I know probably a lot of this stuff's going to merge together. But this year is a new grant year. It's a biannual grant, so it's a 2-year grant. Last grant was a biannual, so we're in our second biannual grant. It's a little different this year than it was in years before. Probably going to be a little user-friendlier than years before. They've combined all the dollars into one pot. So they really haven't pigeonholed us like they have years before in the past and said, well, you can only use this for EM, you can only use this for salaries and benefits, you can only use this for prison diversion, you can only use this for jail diversion. It's now really one pot of money. They still don't want us to intermingle the jail diversion and prison diversion dollars, but it's one pot of money. What does that mean? Well, it means that we can move money where we're short, so if we have needs in aftercare services, we have needs in anger management services, we have the ability now to move that money where in years past we did not have that ability to move the money. So, to give you an idea, house arrest for the judges, last probably 6 months we've been using a lot of house arrest. We're sitting on some money that we were kind of, holding money back just to make sure we had enough money to get us through the grant year. And then all of a sudden it was a race to the end. Let's spend this money, so we're not returning it back to the state. We won't really be in that pigeonhole moving forward. So that's the nice thing about the new grant. As far as the dollar amount, it stayed the same. It was not cut. It stayed the same. However, there's language out there in the governor's office that it might be increased. Don't know what that figure would look like. I don't know if it's 20,000. I don't know if it's 100,000. But there is language out there indicating when the governor passes the budget bill, there might be an increase in dollars. Not sure where we'll use that money. If we're going to use it in additional programming or what, but we will have possibly the ability to have additional funding for that. So I'll quickly go through. We really didn't change any program. We still have the GPS house arrest program. We still have the first offenders program. We've seen an increase in the first offenders program because of language in the law changing for treatment of lieu offenders, treatment of lieu offenders, and now that door's opened up a lot more, so we've seen a lot more people in that type of program. Aftercare services, we still have the 2 aftercare services ran by Lake Geauga. One is for the high-risk felons, one is for the moderate-risk misdemeanors and felons. They're being housed in Mainville, and the other one's being housed in Medford. So those programs are still available. Those programs are really designed for anybody that's coming out of jail treatment program or anybody that's coming out of NeoCap, so that way it's plug and play. They don't have to go through Medicaid applications and all these kind of things to get into the program. They can go right into the program. As soon as they complete jail treatment program, they already have a bed date or a date for aftercare. As soon as they complete NeoCap, they already have aftercare set up. So it's plug and play. There's no lengthy process to wait to get in. Domestic violence and anger management, still the same curriculum. It's with Signature Health. I think that was 26 sessions for that curriculum. It is separated by male and female. The female is a 12-session program. The male's is 26 sessions. But that's ran through Signature Health right here in Painesville. One of the new programs that we offer this year is Decision Point. We've offered Thinking for a Change before in the past. Thinking Forward Change is more of a program designed for residential services because it's 26 sessions. It's not open-ended, and so you kind of have to wait till this group gets through before you start another group. Decision Point is anywhere from 6 to 12 sessions based on performance, and you can put them in at any time. We run that program in the jail, and we run that program outside of the jail, so that program has seen a lot of success lately. That's going to be on the 408 side. On the 407 side, continue running our intensive supervision, continue to run our drug testing, aftercare service, and then transitional day reporting program. For those that don't know what the transitional day reporting program is, it's a program designed for folks that are in long-term residential treatment or long-term correctional settings, and they don't have things established in the community like housing, employment, services. Transitional day reporting program utilizes the jail to house them in the evening, and then during the day they go out in the community and they look for programming, employment, and housing. It's amazing that you put someone in jail for one day and how quick they can find a job. And it's their key to get out, and they can find a job pretty quick. So that's been a successful program.
Community courts use that?
Transitional day reporting program? On the jail side, yes. It's time consuming in the sense that someone has to check their schedule every single day.
If our probation department.
So if your probation department did that, yes, they can. They would be put in a work release pod on the jail side, and they can utilize that program. They're the ones that are going to have to monitor that schedule, send that schedule on the jail tracks. But yes, it's available on the community side. So there's not much changes in the grant from years past. The question now is vendors. Do we still want to continue with the same vendors? And this is probably more for the judges. Are you satisfied with the vendors that you're receiving?
I'm not crazy about Signature Health.
Okay.
I think they're a mill. They're
Okay.
interested in money. I've never been impressed with them. I know there's other ones that popped up like Brightview that seem very substandard from what I've seen so far. So we're running out of places, it seems. I prefer Crossroads to Signature Health.
And the reason why we want Signature Health on this program is because we hold the purse strings. There are other programs at Signature Health we don't hold the purse strings, so there's that 4-week waiting list, 5-week waiting list, whatever it may be. This one, since we hold the purse strings on this program, it's immediate with Signature Health. There's no wait on this program. But I can't answer to the other programs that Signature Health offers.
On our mental health court, I just had this problem yesterday. They have a waiting list of 400 people.
They
Signature Health to get constant. So I have people on my mental health court that have 6 months in the court, they don't have constant. I mean, it's ridiculous. I was going to say that for later, since you brought it up. It's ridiculous.
We're not seeing that wait time on Crossroads side or Lake Chicago side.
No.
They've got, I don't know when they started Signature Health, but they got so big so fast that I just think they're looking at just chasing dollars. I had very few good experiences with
Kim, do you have any?
So the evolution of this program was, originally with Wisconsin Counseling about maybe 10 years ago. And when they were closing, Signature agreed to kind of take on this program. So it is a carve out from the rest of the programs at Signature. And they've been the provider of it since this move. I mean, with that said, another provider could see another program. That the issue with the waiting list is the reality is we just do not have enough clinicians. And this is statewide, this is nationally, with a huge lack of clinicians. So we have no long waiting lists. Judge, we definitely, we need to talk because I've told the agencies they should be prioritizing the court 100% of the time. So if that's not happening, then I need to drive them. But, is the quality of this program at Signature in question, or is it?
I think it's the overall quality of signature in my life.
I guess the only thing I would say is the benefit to maybe keeping this program there is that now that they're a federally qualified health center, the folks who you're referring to the management, if they've got physical health issues, if they need dental care, if they need any of those other things, they're all under one roof across the street. And getting the medical care for folks, especially coming out of the jail, is challenging. So, but that said, I mean, yes, Crossroads could be a provider of the anger management program. They would have to build it. They don't have it. Like Giago could be a provider. Again, they have to build it. But, and in all transparency, likely what would happen is the folks who are running it at Signature would then become employees of Crossroads or like Giago to kind of just move the whole program, because these are folks with the expertise in that area.
Any other vendor issues?
I will just say though, the Bright Views, the New Seasons, Pinnacle, which opened and closed, those are cash and carry, methadone pushing, Suboxone pushing, no treatment facilities. We have no ability to regulate them, but because the State Department gives them a license and says, okay, you can be a provider. So it's Medicaid, Ohio's going to go in provider. But it's a huge problem for us because they're an easy way out for a lot of people.
Is Pinnacle the one that was on Good Avenue?
No, that's a different one.
Pinnacle was across from the fairgrounds.
Yeah,
Pinnacle
Pinnacle.
was across from the fairgrounds.
And they opened, and they did a grand opening, and a month later they closed because they realized they weren't going to have enough clients.
Whatever the one facility was performing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they're popping up all over. And they won't come to the auditorium for funding because they don't want any oversight. They're cash and carry.
Any other vendor issues? House arrest, are we satisfied with Lake Erie Animal? No, that is.
Well, I have a question about that, because this came up recently. There was a guy who was on bond in the GPS. Came in for arraignment, and then he revoked his bond because he was screwing around with the unit. And he kept saying that the battery would run out, he would recharge it. There was some confusion, he gave the slip of the thing off his ankle. So, we talked about this. What, do we get timely notification from the hearing when there's a problem, when there's an interruption of service?
So let me backtrack a little bit. Under our grant, we contract with Lake Erie Interlock, and that's only to do jail diversion on sentenced offenders. So we pay for their program. For bond cases, that's client pay. So it has nothing to do with this grant. And they can pretty much use any vendor they choose, whether it's Ohio AMS, whether it's Lake Erie Interlock, or
Well,
whether
this one was Lake Erie.
so that one was Ohio AMS,
Okay.
which is Scranton.
So are we notified?
We are notified. My personal issue with Scram is I will get emails,
Okay, this wasn't a scram.
but Ohio AMS, they do GPS and they do alcohol monitoring. My issue with Ohio AMS is that I will get emails indicating there's a violation. But the email is language that they won't stand on, in the sense of, I'll give you an idea. We have an individual that we suspect tests positive for alcohol, but we cannot confirm it.
Why do we use it?
So they're the only game in town for alcohol monitoring.
But if it's worthless, why do we do it? They're not, so if we get that notification, we can't confirm it, what do we do about it?
Exactly. And what do I do about it is when I get enough of those, I bring those to the prosecutor's attention and say, hey, is this enough that we can say there's something going on here, and are you comfortable revoking their bond? And then on the prosecutor's side, yes or no, or I need more, or no, this is good enough, or, so like the case you're referring to, he's unplugging it every other day. It's supposed to be charged every day. He's unplugging every other day, so it loses signal doesn't say power outage, doesn't say anything like that, just say low signal on unit, needs to plug his unit in. What am I supposed to do with that? On a bond case, on a probation case, it's completely separate, but on a bond case.
Well, the bond, I would assume that if you put them on GPS on a bond, it has to operate all the time, or it's a violation of the bond.
Correct.
So why would we use AMS then, if that's the case?
But it's not we using it, I think it's, we're allowing them to pick the agency they want to use because it's their bond.
Well, we can also restrict them which agency they can use.
Right, so it would have to come, in these cases, would have to come from Muni Court. You are going to be placed on GPS with this company. But the language now, correct me if I'm wrong, Judge, language now is whatever the bond amount is along with GPS monitoring. It doesn't say what agency or company or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
So what, once, like for instance, this guy who's clearly screwing around with his unit. And is it, so we get these half-ass notifications from AMS, right? And he's been doing this for a while, because this guy's been on bond for, my recollection, upwards of a year. And I don't know where the case was at, but. So what do we do to go grab this guy up?
So what we did in that case was we did go to the prosecutor and we had a warrant issued on him a long time ago.
How do we, the issue I had and talked to the chief about this is, if we have a warrant on him, we knew he was in East Cleveland, because that's where he's been.
That's where Signal was, right?
But what do we do to get him once we get the warrant? I mean, doesn't do any good for the guy to be screwing around with his unit, have a warrant, and we don't enforce the warrant.
Well, I agree. We get very little mutual aid from Cuyahoga County agencies, meaning if we call them up and say, hey, we've got a guy with a warrant, can you go do a check to see if he's available? We don't get that assistance at all. And so it's a matter of now us taking our manpower and going out there and picking them up.
Well, the marshals task force picked them up.
Right.
So is that what we're going to do with Cuyahoga County folks? Is that the marshals? We just can't let them out there, right? We got to go get them.
And they have certain qualifications that they have to meet in order to create the federal ID number. Generally speaking, in these cases, they would meet the qualifications. And then it kind of goes on a, they have to prioritize the cases they're working. If it's a priority, you can certainly let us know and make sure it gets to the top of their list.
So this GPS condition is a problem. It's becoming a problem.
As far as a bond,
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, if we can't go get them, we have to wait to go get them.
Well, this is probably the only case that I've heard of in the 20 years we've been doing bond supervision. Usually when someone revokes their, or violates their bond and has a warrant, the first thing to do is cut the ankle bracelet off. And so then we can't track him or anything like this. This guy was unusual. He knew he had a warrant, and he kept wearing the ankle bracelet. It was just a matter of why didn't we go get him? And I don't have an answer for you on that other than we have 900 warrants.
This one actually took upwards of a month because he was in a high rise and they had actually do surveillance and they were making fun of themselves because the guy had a GPS and they still couldn't see him because he was in a high rise. So they were trying to figure out what car he was in and catch him coming and going.
So he wasn't living at the address he reported to the courts. This was an address none of us had other than we had a ping from a GPS location saying he's in this building. What unit in this building, we don't know. So it's not as easy just knock on his door and say, all right, Mr. Lewis, come with us. I don't have an answer for you, as far as prioritizing our warrants, which ones have priority. I brought this back to the marshal's attention because Ohio EMS said, hey, this guy is falling behind in payments. We want our unit back. We don't want him.
Well, they should go get it then. I mean,
They tried getting it. The guy would only meet him at parking lots of convenience stores or parking lots of the mall.
Well, one of the bigger issues is that is
people that are falling behind in their payments. See, Lake Erie just lets that go for a long time, and all of a sudden then we're notified, this guy hasn't been payment in 2.5 months. So he's been basically violating the condition of his bond for 2.5 months. And we're not getting notified until way down the road that he hasn't been keeping up with the condition of his bond. Lake Erie lets it go.
Well, that's just a bad business practice on their part.
But they're doing this, it's our bond condition. And he's supposed to be, or she's supposed to be making payments to keep up to date, and they're not doing it. We need to be notified sooner. Lake Erie doesn't let us know for months later that person's 3 months behind. Now they owe, a couple $1,000, and that's never going to get paid, and they want it back. And we need to be notified sooner when that happens, so we could, frankly, it'll be more realistic that they're going to be able to make that payment if it's notified 2 weeks, a week later to catch up versus 2 months later. But Lake Erie lets it go too long. They need to notify you guys and us much sooner when the person's not.
I will bring them to their head. And I'm sure they're getting the song again, say, where's my money? Oh, I'll get it to you next week, I'll get it to you next week.
Even how many weeks the song and dance before they realize it's a song and dance?
Right.
They need,
Or they owe thousands, well, here's $50,
yeah, they keep them, and then they let them stay on it. That's why I think they need to start notifying us sooner when it's confined conditions that they're not keeping up. Because those people, agreed to that condition to get out of bond, and they're not confined.
Well, and I think as a business practice, they should say, all right, you didn't pay me, so I'm removing the equipment.
I don't care about the business. It's an order of the court.
Right.
Not foul.
But the order is to have a GPS unit. The order is not to pay, be current on your payments for the GPS unit. So it takes the monitoring company to say, all right, you're behind payment, we're removing the equipment. Now there's a bond violation.
Isn't one of the problems, though, that if you put out a GPS bond condition, it's a private pay on somebody who's represented by the public defender, isn't that? Aren't you setting that up for not payment? Because those things are expensive. So,
$500.
so are we setting ourselves up for failure by putting a GPS?
Yes.
Who is your client?
You always want answers, John. You're always going to have answers.
Legislature requires us to use the least restrictive sanctions some of the time. When they're on bond, GPS is one of those tools that we have. They choose not to fund these things. And if we have limited funding, we use what we have in our specialized funds to pay for whether it's a scram unit or GPS, if we can. But it's another one of those situations that want us to do certain things and then don't provide any of the financial support for which us, so that we can do that.
Right, no, I get it. All right, any other vendor questions, problems, issues? Okay. The grant budget itself, gave everybody a copy of that. I've actually been tracking it since 2006, our grants. We had an increase 1 year, and we haven't had anything since that time. So 2011, basically, the present. My fault. 2012, we had the increase, one-time increase of $10,269. From that point on, it's been the same amount all the way through until present. So the amount is still the same. Why it shows up differently is because it's a 2-year grant. These are all 1-year grants. So when we get into 2022 is when it actually becomes a 2-year grant. So that was our last grant that will expire June 30th. And then our new proposal is the same amount, but it's all combined into one. Any questions with the budget on the grants? why relapse program is 0. I kept that on there in case we got the additional funding, that I have the line item in there. We've been fortunate enough with Medicaid and those programs, the Adams Board, that we've been able to pay most of our relapse programs through that, so we haven't had to rely on the grant dollars to pay for that. But if we get additional dollars, that's a program. I want to keep that line item in there. It's a program we can utilize. Any questions on the budget for the grant? Do I have a motion on the floor to accept the grant proposal for the programming, the vendors, and the budget amount?
So moved.
Judge Colon, second. Captain Brooks. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. All right. Got that out of the way. Our comprehensive report is the binding. So we haven't done this in quite some time. We've kind of done the annual report to look at what we're doing program-wise. But I did a report now that kind of captures everything we've done for the past 12 years. And so, go through this fairly quickly, because I know we have full schedules today. Front page is basically demographics of the county. I think the biggest eye-opener there is our, since 2012, our African American population and Hispanic population is, in 2012, Hispanic population was our largest minority group. Now they're both equal numbers, so that's the biggest change from 2012 to present. Just some language in there, how the corrections board was formed, why it is formed, our goals for our corrections board, that we have. They're ongoing goals. They're not something that we're just doing the next 2 years. These are ongoing goals that we're going to work on. One of the areas that we really need to work on is the county-wide data collection and reporting accurate and consistent measurements for our criminal justice system. We all have our own little hybrid system. We need to have a system that hopefully can capture most of that. Community courts, are you, I know Painesville, Willoughby and Mentor, are you guys moving towards OCSS for your probation case management? I think you have it.
I think it's been 2 years now.
2 years now? You've been doing it? Okay, good. So we can actually merge those systems and capture everything we're doing in Lake County. So I'll have to meet with your chiefs to get something set up there so we can capture that information. But really want to get into the numbers, so what we're looking at. So I've captured everything from what we're doing on the felony probation end, what we're doing on the prison end, what we're doing on the jail end, and what we're doing on the court end. And so on the felony probation end, this is our population from 2010 to 2022. So you can see we've dramatically gone up over the years. We put more people on probation. This is actually not the number for the whole year that it's capturing one date of that year. What was our population? So this is, all these numbers are January 1st of that year. That was our current, our population for that date of that year. And so there's been a 44% increase over the past 12 years in the felony population. A lot of that has to do with mandates. We're not supposed to be sending 4s and 5s to prison, so where do we put them? We put them on probation. So those numbers have dramatically increased over the past 12 years. Our gender, over the past 12 years, females pretty much have stayed the same since 2010 to 2022. We had a drop in 2013 to 2014, but for the most part they've been pretty consistent. Male population has gone up dramatically. Race, make it small. So we're now seeing a drop in white probationers. However, we're seeing a dramatic increase in African American population. It's like an 87% increase over the past 12 years. The next slide will probably explain a lot of that. This is population by residents. Our out-of-county residents have dramatically increased over the 12 years. As a matter of fact, right now, currently, 52% of our founding population is out-of-county residents. So what's that saying? 52% of the people are coming in, 52% of our county population is coming into Lake County and committing crimes. That's huge when we're talking about our resources from our Adams Board, our jails, housing now, out-of-county residents. Our courts have to deal with out-of-county residents. Our warrants being out-of-county residents. It makes it very difficult to address this. I think my interpretation of this is there's not opportunities, there's not resources that are available on the eastern portion of Cuyahoga County. Their closest resources and opportunities are Lake County. Probably seeing a lot of it in the Willoughby Court. Where's the hotels? There's no hotels in East Cleveland, there's no hotels in Euclid. Where are our hotels? We're seeing a lot of human trafficking coming out of our hotels. We're seeing a lot of drug activity coming out of our hotels. They're right here in Lake County. And so 52% of our population is coming from other counties. I don't know how to correct that problem. Other than maybe the commissioners can contact the Visitors Bureau and have them put signs up on the border that says, if you come to Lake County, you go to jail. But
An arch. Big arch.
So it makes it difficult when we're supervising offenders. They can't make it out here. They come here to commit their crimes, and they can't come out here to report to probation. So it makes it very difficult. So that is by residents. The number of PSRs and drug and alcohols have some increase. Our sanities have dramatically increased over the course of 12 years. I don't know if that's a reflection that mental illness is increasing. That would be my speculation. But we're seeing an increase in our sanities and incompetencies. Number of PSRs going directly to prison at sentencing. We had a big spike in 2016, 2017, and then 2021, and then it dropped again back in 2022. Number of probation violations we've had, that has increased over the course of 12 years. The number of probation violations that result in a prison sentence have pretty much stayed the same. That's the gold line over the course of years. But the number of probation violators that return to probation has increased since 2019. So more people on probation. We're seeing a lot more probation violations. Some years past, we maybe had one probation violation, their second probation violation, they're going to prison. Now our normal practice is they might have 2, 3, 4 probation violations before they're actually sent to prison.
So those numbers reflect for the year then, not just the state.
That's correct. That's correct. Percentage of probationers test positive, referrals for probationers test positive. Now this captures any positive test. It could be medication, it could be legal or marijuana, could be street drugs. And so 42.1% of our referrals walking in the door, probationers walking in the door, are testing positive for drugs.
Is that counting, so you're already on probation, so it's not counting referrals when a person pleads?
Yeah, this is counting everybody, referrals and probationers. So every urine test, 42% of our population that's coming through our doors is testing positive. But it captures medication though too. So it's not I don't want everybody to assume that it's illegal activity.
So that's 42% of the tests that are administered are positive versus 42% of probation. Because you're giving, obviously, multiple tests.
Right, no, this is 42% of the tests are coming back positive.
Right, so I mean, one probationer is gonna, when they're on probation, they're gonna receive 100 tests maybe over the course of the 2 years.
Correct.
But so it's the percentage of the tests that are given that come back.
Correct.
So it's not positive probation, surely.
Am I correct with that? Because this was off of your urine lab. So we did it off of number of tests. Number of positive tests versus number of negative tests, not number of probationers versus.
Right, I believe that the next one, positive drug type, were the actual, number of tests. I believe
Also,
that
maybe
this-
that is probation.
Yeah, I believe the first percentage of positive probationers were actually individuals tested.
So this was individuals. 42% of our population is testing positive for some
This is
medication,
actual
street
tests,
drugs.
this one.
What's that?
The next screen was actual tests.
Yeah, so this is actual test. The positive note on this screen is in 2015 we had 100 positive heroin tests. In 2022 we only had 4. We don't test for fentanyl on the lab. We test it on an instant test.
Okay, so that's.
So we're testing for fentanyl, but it doesn't capture in a data format.
That's not the chart.
That's not on the chart. So there is some caveat to this. This is not capturing, fentanyl, those kind of things. In 2018, or 17, 18, and 19, amphetamines, we didn't run that on the machine. We ran that via instant test. So these are actual lab results, not instant tests. And so amphetamines, which typically in our world is methamphetamines, has dramatically increased. If you look at in 2015, we had 53 amphetamine tests. Now we're at 236. So meth is a big problem in Lake County. Marijuana, 321 in 2015, 632 in 2022. Dramatic increase. A lot of that has to do with the legalization of marijuana. A lot of it has to do with a lot of these Cuyahoga County residents coming into Lake County. I think marijuana is legal in Cuyahoga County for recreation and all other intents and purposes. However, in Lake County, it's got to be a recommendation from a doctor. So it's amazing the clientele that come into our office from Cuyahoga County. What do you mean I can't smoke marijuana? You can't. It's a violation of your probation. You can't use a illegal drug. So I can go to a doctor and get a card? Well, no, you have to go talk to a judge about that. And so I don't even think Cuyahoga County tests marijuana anymore on probation. So we're saying marijuana is a major problem. We're saying meth is a major problem. We are capturing fentanyl on an instant test. We just don't have that data available. We will here soon when we start when it merges into OCSS. But the system we had to use for our urine lab didn't merge into OCSS, so we couldn't capture that data. Alcohol obviously is a major problem. We're not capturing that as well on this because it only has a 24-hour lifespan in the lab. So we don't capture alcohol. Offense category. This is coming out of common pleas, so it's not misdemeanor. We had a dramatic increase in domestic violence cases over the course of the years. A lot of that has to do with your second domestic violence now becomes a felony. So a lot of that time, the muni courts prior to 2010 would keep it in the muni courts, even if it was their second one, they would work with them. Now we're seeing a lot more being found over in the common pleas. So we're seeing a lot more domestic violence cases coming over to common pleas. Sex offenses, 13 to 27, so we've doubled. I believe that is increased more in lines of our technology has increased and we're able to monitor sex offenders more, as well as we're keeping more sex offenders on probation. Prior to 2010, usually in Lake County you had a sex offense, you were going to prison. Now we're keeping them in our communities on probation and we're working with them a little more. But that essentially has doubled since 2010. Other violent offenses, you're seeing a spike there. Coincidentally, see that spike in 2017. 2017 is when we saw our heroin epidemic really explode. So it doesn't surprise me, things go hand in hand. When you have a heroin increase that you're trying to feed a habit, then you have, it associates other violent offenses. Property offenses went down. Not sure the explanation behind that, why they went down. Drug offenses had a spike in 2017. You can see a lot of that has to do with the heroin epidemic, and it's kind of leveled off over the last 2 years. A lot of that has to do with some programming that House Bill amnesty program, where someone overdoses and they get into services, they withhold the charges. So we're not seeing those cases coming through the courts. OBIs have decreased. My only explanation possibly to that would be we're only capturing the most serious offense associated with these categories. So they might have an OBI associated with maybe carrying a firearm. They might have an OBI associated with possession of heroin. So we're capturing the possession of heroin versus the OBI. So that's my only explanation as to that, but I think community courts are seeing a decrease in OBIs as well. And I'll capture that here.
Well, along those lines, that what's happening now is that the community courts are binding over the OBIs. Prosecutor's office are indicting the misdemeanors, we're taking both pleas. But if you're only capturing the felony, then you're not capturing that misdemeanor OBI that in the past would have been kept at community court, would have been its own separate staff.
Right. So they're being bound over as a misdemeanor here?
Yeah.
Here. Okay.
And then they're pleading to a misdemeanor. And we accept them because we want, you know, the prior OBI can be used to enhance a later OBI. But several years ago, they were keeping those OBIs at community court. So you would capture that conviction if it was kept at community. Well, I guess you wouldn't, and not this stat now.
I have some OBIs up in community courts. So just kind of definition of the offense terminology for each one of those. But when I said the increase in other violent offenses, we're talking about, you know, serious violent offenses, homicide, vehicular assaults, kidnappings, robberies, those types of cases. So we're seeing an increase in that, which is alarming. Our prison demographics. This is just Lake County inmates in the prison. It's been pretty consistent across the board. 2023, they didn't have the report ready for females, so that's why it's not capturing females. But females have been pretty consistent across the board. Males, up and down. But as we tell, in 2017, 2018, 2019, a lot more people went to prison. A lot of these were heroin addicts that it was much easier for them to do their prison sentence than it was to do programming, treatment, and services they weren't interested in, so they went to prison. So we saw a spike in our prison population. And I think a lot of that has to do with the heroin epidemic. Prison population by county level, currently we have close to 18 people on F1s in prison. 39 we have for F2s, 119 for F3s. Our largest population is the F5s, 122. So this is the population, the F4s and F5s that this grant wants us to capture. Reducing our prison populations. Our F3s, our F2s, and F1s, the state has no problems with. I don't know why it's the state has no problem with those folks going to prison. The F4s and 5s, they want to keep them captured in the community and placed in programs. So that's the target population that we need to work on.
Do they understand that they're only going on 4s and 5s after multiple failures of probation? Do they understand that?
It'll be captured here as well.
Do they care about that?
They let them out.
My argument to the state is, you're telling me someone that is a violent offender, has a history of violent offense, but only commits an F5, who's going to ruin the fidelity of programming in our community, we can't send to prison. We have to put them in program in our community, which is going to ruin the programs, those kind of things. They don't care.
Well, we can, they just don't like it.
They don't like it, correct.
Do we care that they don't like it?
I assume.
No.
Well, we do care in the sense of they provide grant dollars to us for these programmings.
Not that easy.
You may care.
Well, the commissioners might care. They provide grant dollars to NeoCap, so our program from NeoCap is trying to capture that same population.
We're not making decisions based on money.
I get
We're
that.
giving them multiple opportunities, but we're not. We've had that opportunity to join TCAP.
Well, and that's essentially the direction they're going, is they're just, instead of calling TCAP, they're gonna move everybody in performance-based programming and base it off your prison population. So our jail population, Lake County jail population, been pretty consistent, other than we had some spikes in 2017, 2018, 2019. A lot of that had to do with the heroin, but our population in 2022, average population is 305. By gender, female population's been pretty consistent. We're seeing a reduction in the male population right now. And I think that has a lot to do with, these are COVID years, so we tried to not utilize a lot of jail population with COVID folks. By race, it's kind of up and down with white. Black has been pretty consistent, and others have been pretty consistent across the board. Our unsentenced versus sentenced misdemeanor cases. The green bar, I guess, is the unsentenced people not posting bond. It's been pretty consistent. We've had up and downs with our sentenced folks. A lot of that, if you see 2017, 2018, is the heroin epidemic. We had COVID years in 2021, 22, which dropped the numbers a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see where these numbers go down the road. But to piggyback on Judge Carnaccio's statement, trying to do as many things as possible to meet bond requirements and those kind of things. So we should start seeing a lot of these unsentenced folks out of that number reducing. Hopefully.
It all depends on the individual that's coming before the court. And there's an increase in people with lengthy criminal histories, lengthy history of failures to appear, failures to report. We're going to talk about how do we find people that are not, they're violating their bond and who's going to go get them. Those are things that we have to consider when we're setting bond. How are we going to get them back if they abscond? And sometimes, you can't bring them to because you have to hold them, or it's a higher fine.
Same chart here, but this is on the felony level, common pleas level, so our sentenced versus unsentenced. Blue being our sentenced is dropped as far as our jail population. Our unsentenced, this could be anybody awaiting bond, this could be anybody awaiting a probation violation hearing, those kind of things. So, for the most part, it's been consistent across the board. However, there was a big jump from 2010 to
Most of those, in 22, a vast majority have to be PDs.
Correct.
Not people that can't get out.
Correct. So these are awaiting either probation violation sentence or awaiting a sentence.
Just like you point out, prisons are putting up every barrier possible to avoid having to take our inmates that we sentence to prison. The sheriff's office has done a remarkable job getting people out of our jail into the prisons in a timely manner, saving the taxpayers a ton of money. And it's not easy. Laura and Bowen and everybody over there is doing a great job of getting people out. Marysville's put up so many barriers to get people in the prison, and we're works their magic, and everyone else up there works their magic, and we get them out of here. We're not paying for them anymore.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Well, and I think our biggest issue was in the COVID years, prisons just basically shut their doors down. We were sitting on people for almost 8 weeks in our jail just to get them transported to prison.
And they're acting like we're still in COVID.
Right. This is an interesting chart that the classification of the population of the jail. Blue indicates they classified as minimum security risk, and the green is the medium security risk, and the orange is the maximum security risk. Blue dramatically decreased, meaning we're putting low risk classified individuals in our jail, and we're moving more to medium and high classification. So our jail population has become a higher risk. Obviously putting the burden on jail staff, putting the burden on medical staff in the jail, mental health staff in the jail, drug and alcohol staff in the jail. So classification-wise, we've gone up in a higher risk population in our jail. Court demographics. So I captured the number, I got this off the Supreme Court website. Trials by court. For some reason, I'm sensing there's been more trials than ever. I'm not sure why these numbers aren't reflecting that. Judges, you have any input on that?
I don't think there's more than ever. I think it's pretty steady.
Pretty steady, okay.
So they're just criminal cases, right?
Criminal cases, correct.
Are these just jury trials? Are these, because that can't be bench trials. This is
It's
trials by-
however it was entered in the Supreme Court.
That's,
Well, that's,
the most accurate for breakout of those numbers is our annual report.
Okay.
Is what you should look to. If you have questions, we can provide that.
Who do you send that to? Anybody?
A lot of the commissioners get a copy.
Okay, but that doesn't go to the Supreme Court?
No, and there's a difference.
I don't think that's accurate.
We're required to provide monthly reports, and they take that information, put it onto their dashboard, which is probably very priority.
That's where I got this right.
But there's an administrative judge report, there's several different versions of reports that come out that are sent down there, and then, so it's not clear, is what.
And I agree with you, because you'll see in some of these charts here, some of these numbers really don't make a lot of sense. The reason why I'm capturing the Supreme Court dashboard is because DRC is now capturing the Supreme Court dashboard. And so when they look at the population of Lake County, they look at the number of cases Lake County has. That's where they're getting that information from.
that's not right. There's many more than 19.
You do probably check the years.
Jury trials.
Yeah, it's more, my guess is more like 30.
I think it's more than that.
40.
Yeah.
Okay.
30 story.
But this is what's being reported to the Supreme Court.
No, that's not what's being reported. They got it wrong.
Okay.
And they're passing on their disinformation to the governor's office. That's dead wrong.
Well, but it impacts grants as well, because that's the number DRC's using as far as the number of cases Lake County's hearing.
Okay, well, so when you're chasing a grant, you're gonna have to tell them their information. But not that they're gonna care, right?
Right.
They don't care. But it's dead wrong.
Dismissals by court, and so I'm not sure what the definition of dismissals mean, if it's truly just a dismissal, or if it's a treatment of lieu case that they were compliant and the case was dismissed. But we've had more than 11 treatment of lieu cases in 2022, so I highly doubt it's treatment of lieu cases. Pleas by court, so Willoughby, I don't know why these spikes are here, other than what you're saying is information's wrong.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to, the recording was done differently prior administration,
Right.
other than that, so maybe there's a difference in how, and the dashboard for the Supreme Court is relatively new, providing that.
Right.
And so, again, there's probably something that is not being translated from monthly AJ reports that go down to put into the dashboard. So, but we can provide, I don't know about our principal, but I'm guessing they might do this on their annual reports. We can provide probably more detail and breakout of those kinds of things because our CMS is able to do that now. So we can generate better data.
So I don't know how accurate this is, dispositions by court. So take these charts back to your boards and see how, let me know how bad they're off. Because I'll have the conversation with the Supreme Court about their dashboard and ask them, why are their numbers not reflecting the numbers that we actually have? So I'll have that conversation. Because it's going to impact us when we talk about grants, because if we go into what the state is requiring us for performance grants, and I'll move on here real quick, into this right here, this is the achieving statewide goals. This is our performance grant. They want the goals. We want success rate of 50% or more. That's completion of these programs. Our mission numbers have to be 95% the number we projected. Performance standards, we have to meet some audit standards. And then in here, it talks about our commitments, DRC, but it's based on this number right here, this number of dispositions by that county. And they're pulling that number off of the Supreme Court dashboard. So if our numbers aren't truly that, I need to make sure I let Supreme Court know so that way they can adjust these numbers so we're not impacted by this.
That number is for common pleas and meeting pleas?
That's common pleas. This 207. And that's over a 3-year period. So they captured FY18, FY19, and FY22.
No way.
And so they took out the COVID years when they tried to capture these numbers, and they're saying over that 3-year period, this is how many dispositions we have for the county.
So they want to entertain a certain percentage of those total dispositions have to be something. Is that how that works? Like at the total dispositions, then you have some goal that a certain percentage of those dispositions have to be.
So they have to, we're capturing F4s and 5s, they have to be non-violent offenses, non-sex offenses, and we're capturing the percentage rate to prison versus the number of cases that we dispose of here in Lake County on the common pleas level.
Dispose of at the first instance or secondary, after PDs? How they come?
Well, there's another section in here for PVs, so this is at the time of sentencing.
The original sentence.
Original sentencing. And so, this is the probation violator report. And so, they captured over the same course, FY 18, 19, and 22. Our average was 23 individuals went to prison. That were F4s, F5s, non-violent, non-sex offenders to prison. That was our average was 23. They want us to reduce it by 46 over a 2-year period. So really 23 over each year. They want us to reduce our number of PVs going to prison. And the F4s, F5s.
What's 23 represent?
The average for FY 18, 19, and 22.
And they want us to reduce it below that?
You're saying only 23 people have been sent to prison on a PV for F4?
Non-violent, non-sex offense, F4s, and F5s.
But are they telling you you have to get below that 23 figure? For grant purposes?
Yes and no.
That answers that.
Right? It's like that house arrest question, right? That they finally house arrest. The answer is yes, long-term wise. This grant's going to be impacted by performance-based. The next 2 years is a test model. They're allowing us to go through, these are our goals we want you to achieve, see how well you do. When we apply for grant FY26, FY27, that's where we might see a reduction. They might come back and say, well, you didn't meet your target goals in FY24 and 25, so we're going to reduce your grant by this amount.
These people
I
are
guess-
clueless.
I should tell you that I am not gonna be making decisions on whether someone should go to prison or not because of money.
And we
That's
should.
not gonna happen.
We should.
Well, you
Well,
said yes, we should, because the commissioners may want us to do that other.
Well,
I'm not doing it.
I'm just saying it will impact other things. When we say it won't impact, it will impact other things.
What we have to do is we have to look at each case, each defendant, and handle it properly. We cannot consider money if we're gonna have justice. Otherwise, we don't have justice. I mean, this is,
But this is the story of the DRC. They don't care. They care about their numbers. They don't care about anything else.
Correct. And then they have an optional goal here if we want to participate in judicial releases, and that is 19 judicial releases in a 2-year period.
They want us to put more on judicial release, right?
Remove people out of prison and place them on probation.
Now, but they're gonna do it themselves.
And I'm wondering if that captures any of those numbers. Do we get credit for that?
No, they get credit.
So our commitments to prison, they want 24.27%. And then our probation violations over, they want 23. So that's their goal. All right, any questions on the comprehensive report? Did any of this make our policymakers make any changes, adjustments in what they're doing? And I think we can see evidence of the heroin epidemic. We can see evidence of out-of-state or out-of-county residents committing crimes here. Other than that, I think we're pretty consistent across the board in what we're doing. So I'll move next to the jail update as far as the jail report. Sheriff?
Well, real quickly, staffing, which was an issue for us, you're at one time 22 corrections officers down from the staffing of 87, which created huge overtime issues. We've worked very hard to get staffing back up despite not having the availability of applicants. Captain Brooks, Captain Simpson were at a number of colleges to get applicants. You had maybe 2 people walk up to the table whole time to apply, but we're 2 away from full staffing currently. And what's problematic is people leaving. Commissioners have increased the pay for corrections officers, which will help us stabilize and begin to get experience level up in the jail. Because right now, it's an average of 2 years of experience for corrections officers in the jail. So we hope to get that up. Our training's been very effective. We're working with Lexipol in terms of policy and procedure development, plus daily and monthly training. Annual training will be up through them. Our jail certifications have been good. We've updated our jail management system and records management system, so we went through that in November. That's all updated now. Changed our mail program in terms of drugs coming in. So all mail is shipped down to Florida now, and it's all scanned into a computer system, shredded, and then the inmates get it back on pads, tablets inside the ranges, so that's cut down some of the drugs coming into the jail. Maintenance issues, trying as best we can to maintain maintenance. We lucked out on one of our elevators. None of our elevators can be updated right now. They all have to be retooled. So we had one of our elevators go down for 2 months while they shipped it out with cranes, and we're able to rebuild it and brought that back. Luckily, it's working. So those issues are being worked with our buildings and grounds and with our telecommunications. So right now, I think the jail is operating pretty efficiently.
Any increase in your medical and prescription? I know that was the topic of our last correction board. Mental health, all those programs.
Our mental health programs are going well, thanks to the Adams Board and their support with having Crossroads in for drug and alcohol treatment, as well as our mental health counselors in the jail. Medical is problematic in terms of getting nursing today, so we're trying to change some of our programming, but the nursing rates are so high for nurses being paid across the medical system. We have currently 3 of the five nursing positions filled that are full-time. We're trying, we've gone everywhere. We have 1 applicant in the past 4 months for one of those nursing programs. And so that is a big issue. Our doctor just, through University Hospitals, just said that he's leaving in 2 months. So we are working with University Hospitals to replace our jail doctor. Fortunately, we have a good physician's assistant, and she's phenomenal in terms of that, and we've been able to keep her employed there. But biggest issue is medical staffing right now.
What about prescription costs? I know that's an issue with nail cap.
We spend about $250,000 a year between psychiatric and medical. We've been able to get, how much back? 100.
This year wasn't a whole lot. Maybe, you remember, Kim, about 73?
That sounds right.
About $73,000 of that, but those costs are very high.
Are we seeing an increase in prescription costs? Because we're seeing an increase in mental health, we're seeing an increase in substance abuse, so are you seeing the same effect on the jail side? Where
absolutely.
The cost of treating these folks is increasing? Any other questions for jail updates? How's the scanner? We have a report on the scanner as far as how much contraband and stuff has been, I guess, stopped coming into jail because of the scanner. We've been tracking any of that.
I think the scanner's been very effective. There's real art to reading the scanner because it's not the same way as a ultrasound machine or CT scanning. We are locating some individuals coming in with those drugs, that combined with the mail, but we've had people now through legal mail, they're putting drugs in jump drives and gluing the jump drive together and sending it in as legal mail. And so that's an issue that we found. So yes, lots of various ways they're trying to get contraband into the facility.
And one of the things that you mentioned earlier was tablets. They have ways of communicating now, not just by phone, but they can text message or email their loved ones, what have you.
We were able to track one person while they were communicating through the tablet and through a phone about drugs they were picking up in another county and on their way to the jail to get them in. We were able to make a traffic stop and get quite a bit of drugs that way.
That's awesome.
So there's a lot of ways we're trying to work those various aspects. But
any follow-up on jail updates, annual report?
So when you say they use the tablets, y'all allow them to keep the tablets in their cell with them? They use it more internal mix.
There's so many tablets per range, they have it while they're out, you know, throughout the day. When they lock down, the tablets are placed back on chargers, but they have access to them while they're out throughout the day.
And we can read them.
They have a lot of uses. We have the rules and regulations on it. We're putting programming stuff on it, religious materials, so they can watch movies. So with the religious materials, now that's one less book going in. That's one less thing they can hide things in. So that way, they've been beneficial so far.
All right, we'll move on to new jail update. Mr. Boyd, you want to take the lead on this one?
No.
Okay.
Just briefly, thanks for having us this morning, or having me. At this point, nothing has changed materially as far as what you heard from the Commissioner's Office in November as far as the program has been completed. It was completed in the fall. Commissioners, I think I made a presentation in November to the Corrections Board, made a presentation to the Commissioners in a public meeting. At this point, at the program stage, which is essentially a massing and scaling and a square footage analysis on what does the Sheriff's Office need long-term, not only on the detention side, but on the admin side. None of that has changed. Where we're at currently is considering what we're calling the Stage 2 Criteria Architect contract with HOK. We authored the first contract to have an option essentially to exercise the next step, which is schematic design and detailed design, so what is traditionally your blueprint phase of a construction project. That contract is currently being reviewed on the legal side, our side, from Mr. Colson's office, and our outside counsel have reviewed it and provided comments back to HOK and their legal team about 2 weeks ago. So that would be the next step of that contract, or of the process. We also are considering or continuing to look at strategic real estate acquisitions near the footprint, which is across from the current jail facility. The proposed HOK contract for stage 2 is approximately $5 million. That contract, the schematic design is 16 weeks. The detailed design is another 16 weeks. So you have about 32 weeks of design. At about the 5-month mark of this project is when the county would begin to see revised, not even revised, but our first actual construction estimates beyond what was provided in November. So let's say a June 1 start date, 5 months from that point in time, so near the holidays, we would have a vetted construction estimate provided by the architectural and design team. And then parallel with that, should we begin the HOK contract, we will begin, my recommendation will begin the solicitation process for the design build team. So as the project is being designed, those numbers will be shared with the contractor, the guys and gals who are going to build the building, and to do value engineering, cost differentiation analysis, etc. So once again, I'm just using June 1 as a potential date. By the holidays, we would have our first kind of construction estimate for the commissioners and the sheriff's office to continue to make decisions about where the project is going. With that, I'll defer to the commissioners if I've forgotten anything.
I'm behaving.
Okay.
I have a question. We had talked, I don't know where you went. Frank had talked in the past, and you may have talked, I don't remember, but there was discussion about combining services between juvenile detention center and the jail with regard to food preparation, laundry services, things of that nature, and I think some classroom setting, although they would be kept separate. And part of the discussion was that building, those renovations were done 90, maybe 89 or 90 over there at the juvenile court, and that, at the time, I think it was a 40-year-old building. I can't remember what the building was before that, department store of some sort, but quite a bit of renovation was done on that. And we talked about, at one point we talked about constructing a new juvenile court that would be placed where they could utilize food and laundry services. together, which would obviously require the current building being torn down after a new one is built. There was resistance by Judge Lawson to doing that. She didn't want any part of that. Back in December, the six of us in our annual meeting, with the exclusion of Judge Lawson, sent a letter, I think we penned it to the commissioners and the sheriff, indicating we were in support of doing that. Now, has that been taken into consideration for this schematic design for HOK to consider?
We would need to take another look, and I've already prefaced at this point, Judge, with the team. If we need to take another look, right now we have as the program, as we showed, is a bulk square footage on what the 4 acres can accommodate. The 4 acres as it stands now in the program does not have facility for a juvenile court. The discussion regarding shared services, i.e. kitchen, laundry, classrooms, we should probably take another look at that if that is the desire of the courts. For example, kitchen laundry services, we need to know right away. The reason I say that is because where we put the power plant, if you will, all the mechanicals, etc. If it's on near the Burger King side, probably not the most logistically convenient way to share services with the juvenile court. So we need to relocate these to the western side of the footprint. So if that's a decision that the court wants us to take another peek at before we get too far along, well, we're happy to do.
We've indicated that. And part of the issue is, and I know Sheriff went over and talked to Judge Lawson when this came up, and she was resistant to it, but she also indicated a number of improvements that needed to be made to the existing juvenile court. So that building that's now 70 plus years old becomes an issue at some point in the not too distant future if it's not included. So right now that footprint is from juvenile east to Burger King, right? Is that the 4 acre footprint?
Excluding Burger King currently.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Jackson to Richmond, Jackson to Erie. Yes.
So
we had talked about if we got rid of juvenile, it would just give us a much bigger footprint to build it. That current building is just right square in the middle of where we wanted to put the new building. And our position was if we got rid of that, we have your old office there next door. I think it just is so much more open space to do this. But I think we wanted to get a new juvenile place first, because Judge Lawson wanted that, so they can move in there and then tear the old one down. You have all that space there.
Well, there's no other way to do it.
Yeah.
We have to do that. But that came up. That was brought up to us. I forget where in the process or who in the process brought that up.
There have been that meeting when we were with HOK.
May have been. Okay, so that was brought to our attention as a possible consideration. So, you know, as a group, the 6 of us that were there at the time, and no one wants to do that. Obviously, Judge Lucci is gone, and Judge Rupel is here. We don't have a juvenile judge right now. But you know, we indicated we're in favor of that to you guys, to the commissioners, and the sheriff.
It's going to have to be addressed. The bond underwriters are going to ask what's not getting done. If we focus exclusively on a jail, and we say we're going to wait 30 years before we take a look at everything, the bond underwriters are going to say, hell no. So all of this, we have to take a very holistic look at this. That's a fair question. It needs to be asked and answered. My position on it has been program that into the expansion space, the flexibility. We're looking at additional land acquisition. As long as we've got a placeholder for it and a plan to go forward, including financing, we should be okay. But it has to be asked and answered.
But when you say the possibility of expansion, are you talking about leaving the design as it is, more or less, without the juvenile court, and then leaving the opportunity to expand eastern, east, would have to be east?
Yes.
To include those services, or are you talking about including it now as part of it?
I would imagine that would be a future consideration. We physically don't have the financial wherewithal to do it all right this second. In fact, I will go on record yet again saying we can't pay for this.
Right. But so then what is, I guess, the direction that the county gives, the commissioners give to HOK is you can say, include a juvenile facility and share services with the jail, or not, right? It's one or the other. Or you're gonna, take a look at both options and see, because we're not gonna know the cost of this until 8 months from now, right? Or get some ideas in November, but then finalize it, this thing will be done in 8 months. I think you said 32 weeks, right?
That's just
Everything's
schematic and detail, then there's a whole,
Right.
another process where the drawings are handed off to the design build team.
Right.
To prepare what's called the guaranteed maximum price construction documents.
But that decision's gonna be baked in 8 months, whether it's we tear this thing down and build another one, or leave it as it is, put whatever money in to it needs to be put into it, and then look at it in the future, right? You have to make that decision.
Yes.
We need to make that
within this
decision
next
now.
7 months. Right, right.
If
That's what I'm
juvenile
asking.
court, the juvenile justice system is contemplated to be rebuilt, that decision is front burner.
And the reason I brought it up is because, to reiterate that we were in support of that, because we were asked if we supported that.
Right.
Several months ago.
So,
And that's a
commissioners, you can, correct me please, but it sounds like we need to take another dive into the juvenile court, because after we had these discussions, my one discussion with Judge Lawson was she had more desires to improve areas within the court, magistrates' rooms, etc., not so much a new juvenile detention facility. Now, that could have changed, and Sheriff, I don't know if you had any subsequent discussions, but I don't want to sign the contract with the existing 4-acre footprint and then come back and look at the juvenile detention site. Because just logistically, we need to figure that out, because we're going to have the movement of just physically of space. Not impossible, but that's extremely important.
I guess, I don't want to have any misunderstanding. She was resistant to it.
Right.
And we, essentially 6 of us, sent a letter to you guys in December saying,
Yeah.
we'll move forward with that if that's the direction you want to go, regardless of her resistance to it.
I think it all depends on what you're looking for out of juvenile. As an example, if you're looking just for housing and recreational programming for the juvenile offenders themselves, while maintaining the court in the current building, 2 separate bases would be one aspect or one way to look at it. Or if you're looking for a whole new juvenile court system, housing areas is a whole nother aspect. Currently, we figured into the new facility 4 to 8 housing beds for juveniles, because we do house juveniles who are bound over, and so having a proper area to do that, but we would be the ones operating that. If in such a thing, if all the juvenile beds were to come over and their programming areas, it would be the juvenile court would manage that portion of the facility, but we could use we're already using our medical staff over there and using but we could add food services to them.
The problem is you're going to be transporting them, if you do that, all day back and forth between where they're housed and where the court is. Right now, they have a PO that brings them up the elevator to the court. So you're looking at expanding your personnel to accommodate transport of juveniles every day. So that seems to be a big problem. I know you're a problem, so that's a big problem.
I think there's just in some high-level discussions with HOK, there are some significant design criteria that we would need to meet as far as separation of population too. So I don't know, the inherent built-in efficiencies, while they sound great, I don't know the practicality of that. And I think maybe, if I'm hearing correctly, maybe that's something before we get, on quote-unquote blueprints, that we take a look at juvenile justice. I, quite frankly, don't know where, turn and make those sorts of decisions. That's not, I don't have that ability. But the footprint right now is 3 to 4 stories, 207,000 square foot public safety center. Loan provision for juvenile court is a handful of beds, 14 beds at this point.
And the most basic question, just to put a bow on this, is going to be, it has to be a capital investment. It's got to be baked into what our 10, 20, 30-year look forward is going to be. We can't say, well, we'll deal with that in 30 years. No underwriter will accept that. I just want to be abundantly clear. That's the basic question. Whatever decision we make, it has to be baked in one form or another. Thank you, Judge.
All right. Any other questions about the new jail project? All right. Move on to specialized docket. Judge?
We have the mental health court in Lake County. I want to thank the Adams Board and also the Sheriff's Department. Without their help, we wouldn't be able to do it. What great partners, and thank you. We're in our 3rd year certification. That means every 3 years we have to be certified again by the Supreme Court. Mental health court. The one issue that I have that was brought up here briefly was we need more counselors. That's something that I don't know if younger people aren't getting in there, they're not being paid enough. We talked to somebody about the opioid money that's coming into the county, and maybe one thing that can be done to try to get more counselors is to have an incentive to pay for student loans. I was thinking that might be something to try to help us on counselors, because we're in dire need of that. That being said, we have Crossroads and Signature Health. The Signature Health thing, my complaint was on the counselors because there's not enough of them. But let me tell you, on my staff and the team, I have Crossroads and Signature Health, my case managers, and they're tremendous. So there's as to the quality of work that they're doing for our courts. Specialized doctors have been wonderful. I've always bragged in the last 10, 15 years now that 75% of the people that graduated from mental health court were never rearrested. It's 80% now. It's 80%. Good job. So I'm very proud of that. I'm surrounded by great people, and that's a wonderful thing. Now in drug court, the Supreme Court, their representative, they reviewed us and they certified us. And, their response was that our staff and team is too good. And that made me feel good, because we're not here to be good. We're here to be the best. We work the hardest, we carry the most, and they said they're too. So I didn't understand it. That's good, because we're too good. I like that. With that court, it's difficult. The drug court is more difficult because you're dealing with people that want to have to help themselves. We're not getting as many people in our drug court because they would rather do the jail time or whatnot rather than the 18-month to 2-year program. So, but we've had a great deal of success there also. So, that's about it.
Drug of choice for your drug court?
No.
No. I know Judge Bernaccio is running a veterans court. I don't know if you guys
I went to her first graduation. First graduation was successful. I know she's been working very closely with the Veterans Administration. I think that's wonderful. And we curtail that with us too. It's not a group that we use.
Are they solely using Veterans Court? You may not have to answer her. Veterans Administration, or are they using Signature Health?
I don't know.
Greg, I think they're using Veterans Administration.
Solely, okay. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
NeoCap update.
All righty, we're staying right around 90% full. We still have some women's beds since COVID. we stayed full constantly up until we got hit with COVID, then we dropped it. We got 60 beds at our Painesville female facility, and we dropped down to 30 beds. Now we're back up around 50 to 53, so it's coming back. The males, we stay full and warm. Our biggest challenge is staffing, finding qualified individuals to come in. We have lowered our expectations. We've been trying to be flexible, and then we're scraping the bottom. Sometimes people we wouldn't have even talked to in the past, we're offering jobs and they're declining jobs. So that's our biggest challenge, especially up here in Painesville for our female facility. Right now, we've been hiring people in Warren, allowing them to drive our vehicles to work at the female facility here. So we have to transport, and you know, the winters can be tough. We got lucky this winter. We didn't have a bad winter. Only one day or so we had trouble driving up here. And with all that driving, we've been having car accidents. You know, if they're not hitting deers, they're sliding off the road. So we've been having some issues there. And then the last challenge we have is how many residents we're starting to get on medications, on prescription meds. Female facility is probably 85% of the women are on medication now, and at the male facility we're around 65%. So our staff now is passing out meds for 2 hours at our male facility, where we really need them to be out in conducting their security job. They're stuck somewhere dealing with medication. So we're looking at trying to bring in some pharmacy tech type individuals. You know, we're trying to be flexible. However we have to handle this issue. Medical assistants. You know, one unique thing about community-based correctional facilities, all the offenders are responsible for their medical. Unlike the jail or prison where they have to come up with ways to find these things. We try to keep it on the resident to work with their families, work with community agencies to address those issues. But that's getting tougher. It's getting tougher and tougher all the time. So we're dealing with the medications. We see a lot of people get put on the MAP program now, mainly coming out of Portage County. We're getting a lot of people, they start in the county jails, putting them on all these different opiate reducer medication. And now when we get them, we can't just, it's some ethical and legal issues. Can we just stop and say, we're not taking you on these medications? So we've been working through those issues. Like I say, right now, it's mainly that Pinnacle program that's in the county jail in Portage is putting a lot of the offenders on MAC programs. So that's our biggest challenge. But other than that, we've been still able to say, run a quality program. Although we down some staff, we've been finding ways to continue the quality of the program.
So you have offenders coming from jails on such things like Suboxone or?
Yes, we started to see out of Portage County. And so we've been working with local providers where we will transport them to stay on these medications. We're trying to be creative as we can to not turn them away. But it might come down to, you have to reject them for placement. But at this point, we've been trying to stay ahead of the game and working with them to still keep their services and be able to accept them to the program.
Any questions on the OCAP? All right, board members, any updates from your agencies?
Well, as we've been talking about, staffing is a huge problem. Our local universities are looking at 12 to 15% reductions in folks coming into the social work programs. So we're seeing it on the back end. Folks who are coming in, counselors coming into our agencies, applying for jobs, are looking at 20 to 45% higher salary demands than pre-program. So the salaries are just through the roof. This year, our board infused another $1 million into workforce at the agency, so we're trying to get more folks in. We're also looking at more peer supporter programs that might help to alleviate it. But the good news is we've got all of our drug and alcohol residential treatment facilities up and running, and I think right now there's no waiting list because we've got enough of those. We're hoping in the new fiscal year to open a second mental health residential treatment facility, 16-bed, adult co-ed. So for some of the mental health folks, it might be a good step down. We're also talking about a regional crisis stabilization center. We're working with Ashtabula and Geauga County on that. We're in the starting phases. UH is at the table with us helping. So that would be a 24/7 crisis stabilization where police could divert folks from the jail and take them straight there if there were clearly mental health issues. Hopefully we would alleviate some of those in the emergency apartments because right now these are just overflowing. I mean, that's probably like a 2-year plan that we're on the front end of, but the talks are really happening. Senator Serino is looking at money in Columbus to help us with capital for that, so it's in the works.
Any other board members have any updates? New business? Everyone want to get out of here? Motion on the floor to adjourn. Second, Jeff Delano.